What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, this is going to be a long episode of Joe Winko Talk, and it's also going to be really morbid and really gloomy, and it's also going to be sad too. It's not quite about myself so much, but it is going to be about someone else. So, this episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be about Jocelyn Flores. She's a girl I read about online, and she committed suicide in May of 2017. And she was also friends with a famous rapper who lived in Florida. His name was XXXtentacion. You guys might have heard of him. He was a famous rapper who lived in Florida, and he was murdered last summer. So, I never heard of XXXtentacion before his death, and I didn't find out about him until roughly 1 or 2 months after he was murdered. I first learned about X from watching one of Based Shaman's videos. Shaman is a YouTuber who does videos on YouTube. I first discovered Based Shaman from his Elliot Rodger YouTube videos, but I watch a lot of Based Shaman's YouTube videos, and I'll have the link to one of his videos about XXXtentacion in the pinned comments. His videos are really awesome, and I think you all should check out his channel. But that's how I learned about XXXtentacion, from watching one of Based Shaman's YouTube videos that he did about X. And after that, I started reading about X online. So, what happened with XXXtentacion was really sad. He's gone through a lot of rough stuff in his life, and it was really messed up, the stuff that he'd been through. And he was murdered in June of 2018, and he was younger than I was. He was only 20 years old when he died. And I just thought it was really haunting and really sad, and I feel really sorry for XXXtentacion because he was so young, and he was really talented too. After I read about X, I started listening to some of his music, and I listened to a few of his songs. My favorite song by him is Sad. That's my favorite song by X. It has a pretty intense tune and a pretty intense beat to it, and I really felt like I connected to that song a lot because these past couple of months, this past summer, have been kind of rough for me lately. Just been going through just some personal stuff, really. And I just really connected to that song a lot, really. Later on, however, I watched a video on YouTube, and it was one of those top 10 YouTube videos, and it was the top 10 songs by XXXtentacion. And I thought that his song Sad was going to make the top 1, but it actually didn't make the top 1. It was his top second song that was his best, but his top 1 song was a song called Jocelyn Flores, and I never heard that song before, but I read that they said in the video that the song Jocelyn Flores was wrote for XXXtentacion's friend, who was a model who committed suicide in Florida. And I listened to the song Jocelyn Flores, and it has I'll have a link to it in the pinned comment, but the best way I can describe it is it has a really slow and melancholy, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, it has a really slow and melancholy tune to it, really, and it's very haunting, and it's very sad, too. Like, I love the song, but it's very haunting and very sad, and it goes... I can't really understand what they're saying during the course of the song, but I think it goes, I know you so much somewhere. I've been trapped in my mind. I can't really understand the words of the chorus of the song. I tried reading some of the lyrics online, but they all say something different. But it has a very slow and haunting tune. But I actually used an instrumental version of that song for the video of me going over the Skyway Bridge. The reason why I used it is because a lot of people commit suicide on that bridge by jumping off of it. And that song was wrote for Jocelyn Flores, and Jocelyn Flores committed suicide. But she did not die by jumping off the Skyway Bridge. I just want to make sure you all understand that. Sorry if that whole explanation seemed a bit insensitive, really, but she didn't die that way. So after that, I became curious about Jocelyn Flores, and I wanted to know what happened to her and why she committed suicide and who she was, really. So I tried reading about her online, and at first I couldn't find much information about her. I found like a couple pictures of her at first, but I didn't know who she was or how old she was. But later on, I eventually discovered more information about her. What I learned was that she was only 16 years old, and it was really sad learning that. Like, it doesn't really matter how old she is really. Like, if she would have been older, it still would have been sad. But the fact that she died when she was only 16, I felt really sorry for her, because it just took me back to the time when I was 16, and I imagined if I would have died then. And another thing I learned about her is that she actually didn't live in Florida at all. She actually lived in the state of Ohio, and that was another thing that hit home for me, because as you all know from one of my previous episodes of Joe Winko Talk, my love for Ohio, I'll have the link to that in the pinned comments. I really love Ohio, and I always associate Ohio as a happy place with happy memories, even though I wasn't there that much. Well, I did go back eventually, but that's a different story. It was really sad learning that also. That's also what made me feel connected to the story. And I wanted to learn more about Jocelyn Flores, and I wanted to learn why did she kill herself when she came down to Florida to visit XXXtentacion. It wasn't exactly clear what happened when she came down to visit or how it all came about, but I did find a copy of her suicide note, and I'm going to show it to you guys right now, and I'm going to read it to you guys right now. Let me just pull it up real quick. Okay. Here it is. Alright, so this is the suicide note written by Jocelyn Flores, and I'm going to read it to you guys right now. I do the same fucking shit every day. Every day feels like Sunday. I cannot escape. My mind is sick. My mind is fucking sick. I am not satisfied with anything. I do not care about progressing in my life. Throughout my life, I cared about other people who did not care about me. No one truly cares anyway. Life is just a waste of time. My life especially. Even though my family says they care, deep down they do not. Friends will come and go. You know my fucking life is a joke, and I'm truly lost in my life. My friend saved my life. My friend saved my fucking life. It's getting less stressful and crazy now, but still, I'm lost. I see the fake humans, and their fake smiles with their fake love. I'll fucking kill all of them. I'm not crazy. I truly am not. The only reason why I'm alive is because of the people who were there for me when I was crying desperately for help. Help, help. My real family is dead to me, but I will always love them. They didn't want to accept the fact that I was fucked up. You're not depressed, you're not sad, you're wasting your time. They didn't get it until it was all over. I saw everything before it happened. No one cared. Well, until they saw me progressing. Losing friends was the best thing that has ever happened to me. Now people come in my life. I am very grateful for them and everyone around me. I constantly get let down. I always get let down. Maybe because I expect so much from people who truly don't give a fuck about me. I get attached to people I shouldn't have. I expect too much. Might as well say fuck them and fuck it. I'll die alone. And I don't want to read that part because I just don't want to read that part. Depressed, hopeless, well, at least I know who I am. So, that was the suicide note she wrote. And I remember I read over that note a couple times, and I remember the first time I read that note, I was kind of bewildered and a bit confused because I didn't know what was going on during that situation at first. And another thing was, I felt very personal while reading that note. I'm not sure if that's the correct word I mean to use, but it just almost felt like I wrote that note because I could relate to a lot of the stuff she wrote, because I've been suicidal before in the past, and I tried killing myself back when I was 16 years old, the same age as Jocelyn Flores, and also when I was 15 years old too, and when I was 14. And that's kind of how I felt back then, really. But another thing I noticed from that note is that I sensed a lot of anger from that note. And I'm going to get back to that because after I read about what happened during her stay in Florida, it made sense. It made sense to me after I read this article. So eventually I found an article online about Jocelyn Flores, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'm going to paraphrase it, and I'll have a link to the article itself in the pinned comments. When I found this article, it shed quite a bit of light on what went on during that whole incident that happened. But the article itself also tells a bit about Jocelyn Flores' life, and I want to discuss that too, Jocelyn Flores' life. So, Jocelyn Flores was born in Bronx, New York on July 2nd, 2000, and she was born the same year as my niece, and that's one thing I noticed about Jocelyn Flores. She reminds me a lot of my niece, my adoptive brother's daughter. She reminded me a lot of. And me and my niece are kind of best friends. We don't talk so much, but that's another thing that made this story really sad, really. Okay, so her father was named Benji Flores, and he worked in a barber shop. And another thing is, Jocelyn, from what I read in that article, she went through some rough stuff throughout her life. I'm not going to explain all of it. I'll have a link to the article in the pinned comments so you guys can read it yourself. But she definitely did go through some difficult times in her life. And I don't want to go too much into detail. But when she was 4 years old, her father passed away from an illness that he could not afford to treat. That's what the article said. And when I read that, it kind of it really upset me because I really feel like they should have treated him for the illness anyway if it was bad enough for him to pass away from it. I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming like the medical people who didn't treat him for the illness. The way things work in the USA, if someone is like really poor, like they're like really, really poor and they get sick with an illness that's strong enough to kill them, that's bad enough to kill them, the medical, like the hospitals or the medicals and the doctors, they'll treat them even though they can't afford it. However, if someone is making money and they're middle class level, like I think there's a certain amount of income they have, they don't qualify for treatment for a medical problem they have, even though it can kill them. Like, I've actually heard of this before. Like, one of my friends, one person I knew, one of his relatives had cancer, and she couldn't afford the treatment because it was really expensive. And I was like, well, if she can't afford it, won't they treat her anyway, even though she can't afford it? But the thing is, they only do that if you're like really, really poor. Like if you're middle class, they won't help you at all. Really, if you're making a certain amount of money, they only treat you if you're really poor. Even though you are making a certain amount of money, and even though you can't afford it, they still won't help you at all. And I just think that's really messed up, really. I don't mean to get political, but I just think that's really messed up. However, the USA is trying to pass a free healthcare for all, and I really think they should have it. I really think they should pass it so stuff like this doesn't happen. Because what they don't understand is when someone passes away from an illness, especially if they have children, it doesn't just affect them. It affects everyone around them. When someone commits suicide, it's never for one reason. But however, I do believe, and this is just my opinion, I can't confirm it, I do believe that that was a major reason for Jocelyn's depression because her father passed away. When my biological uncle died, it was rough, and it's still rough on me to this day. And I know that it was rough for her too. They said that Jocelyn Flores first tried suicide when she was 12 years old, and that she had been hospitalized 4 times for suicide attempts. Now, I'm about to say something extremely personal. I was planning on saying this in an episode of Joe Winko Talk eventually. I just never been ready to say it on an episode of Joe Winko Talk because I didn't feel comfortable sharing this right away. But I have also been hospitalized before for suicide attempts back when I was a teenager, back when I was 15, and back when I was 16. And people usually don't like to be open about that, being hospitalized for depression or suicide attempts. But you know, we all go through rough times, and it's nothing for anyone to be ashamed of, really. And mental illness has a stigma, and I don't think that stigma should exist, honestly. So, I just wanted to throw that out there, my intake on that. So, it also said that she had done self-mutilation before, too. And by self-mutilation, I mean, like, cutting wrist. And I've done that before, also. I still have scars on my arm, on my wrist, from when I cut them. You probably can't see them so well now, but I'll have pictures of them on the screens so you guys can see them. And it was a really rough time. It's really rough going through that. And it was really sad knowing that she was going through that also. However, some of Jocelyn's family members were frustrated about the song that XXXtentacion wrote, And I actually have a quote from the article, and I'm going to read it right now. Let me show it to you guys. Okay, so here's the quote from the article. Over the course of multiple interviews, family members expressed frustration with the inaccuracy of songs' lyrics, statistics, or psychological assessments to capture Jocelyn's personality in its full complexity. They didn't know the story of Jocelyn, Danielle Flores said. Between depressive episodes and sometimes during them, Jocelyn was funny, outgoing, girly, and extremely stubborn, her relatives said. She liked to draw. She accompanied her cousin to Girl Scouts and sketched unicorns for them. She wanted to move to New York and go to art school. Now, that last sentence, she wanted to move to New York and go to art school, I really wanted to point that out because I just wanted to show that Jocelyn Flores, she had hopes and she had dreams, and she did have a plan for her life. She also had an aunt who lived in San Antonio, Texas, who she would go visit every summer. And her aunt would always call her Nina. And right away when I read that, I don't know how to explain this, but I automatically felt a connection when they called her Nina, because the word Nina is Spanish for little girl, and that reminded me of my biological uncle back when I lived with him in the Dominican Republic, my uncle Mario, because they always called Jocelyn Nina, but my biological uncle would always call me Nino, and Nino is Spanish for Nina is Spanish for girl, like young girl. Nino is Spanish for young boy. So that's a nickname my uncle always would call me, Nino. He didn't call me Joe very often unless he was worried about me. That's when he would call me by my first name, but most of the time he'd call me Nino. I never mentioned that until now, but I do remember him calling me that a lot. So, yeah, that just brought back memories for me reading that. So, the article said that as Jocelyn got older, her depression got harder on her. What happened next was Jocelyn became popular on social media, and she eventually caught the attention of XXXtentacion, and he got in contact with her, and they were talking to each other, and he invited her down to Florida and got her parents' permission, and he gave her a plane ticket, and he sent her a plane ticket, and she flew down to Florida to visit him. And her mother thought that a vacation down to Florida would be nice because Jocelyn had been going through some rough times, because the article stated that she was hospitalized in Christmas of 2016, and I really felt sorry for her about that also, because it's not good going through that. And when she got there, he asked her if she wanted to model for him because XXXtentacion was planning on launching a clothing line called Revenge to promote his new album, which had the same name. And the thing is, X actually invited another girl down there, and her name was Zoe. That's what it said in the article. And Jocelyn and Zoe were both staying with XXXtentacion. They were staying there when they both visited Florida. I'm not sure. I don't really know much about this girl named Zoe. The article didn't really reveal much information about her, who she was, how old she was, or where she came from, or how XXXtentacion met her. But this is when things started to go wrong. So, X also had money in a bag at his house, money that he earned from his tours and his concerts and everything. He had it in a bag at his house. And when he came, he had to go to prom to accompany his cousin at prom because that's what his plans were. So he left Jocelyn and Zoe at his house alone. And when he came back from prom, his bag of money was gone. So he asked Jocelyn and Zoe if they knew where it was. And the article stated that both of the girls were blaming each other for it. And then that the girls got into an argument over it. And what happened was XXXtentacion told them that they couldn't stay with him anymore because he didn't want them arguing or fighting at his house at all, and he said that they both had to leave. And then he also told Jocelyn that she couldn't model for revenge anymore, and he offered Jocelyn a flight ticket back to Ohio, but she declined it. So he got her a hotel room so she could stay there. So she was obviously very upset by this, really, and what ended up happening was she sent X a text asking him, is he really not gonna let her model for revenge anymore, and is he really serious that he doesn't want her to stay anymore? And he said yes. And she committed suicide in her hotel room, and that's what happened. And then later on, she was brought back to Ohio, and she was buried in a cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, the thing you guys have to remember is that when someone commits suicide, I said this earlier, when someone commits suicide, it's never for one reason. Suddenly, when I read that, it all made sense to me now. That's why she seemed so upset in that suicide note she wrote, and that's why she seemed so angry, because she probably felt really sad because she was friends with XXXtentacion, and he thought that she betrayed him and everything. But the thing was, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging Jocelyn at all, and I'm not judging XXXtentacion at all. This is just speculation on what I think that she felt. But that's why I think she seemed so angry. And, to be completely honest, I do not believe that she took that money at all. I know for a fact that she did not take it at all, because she was upset and she felt betrayed, and she committed suicide right after it happened. So she didn't take that money at all. I'm very suspicious about this other girl, but I knew that she didn't take it at all. I'm 100% sure that she didn't, and I felt really sorry for her. And I understand how she could be upset because of that, because she was also going through some other rough stuff too. And another thing that people don't seem to understand is people always think that when you have one bad thing that happens to you, and then you have another bad thing that happens to you, and sorry I'm having a tough time explaining this. This is because of my autism and everything. When you have one bad thing that happens to you and another bad thing that happens to you, they're just both separate issues, that it's not like they're both affecting you at the same time, but it's true, they both are affecting you at the same time. And I'm not sure, I know this might be a bit insensitive to use this analogy, but I mean this term or analogy, but are you guys familiar with that term, the straw that broke the camel's back? That was the one thing that upset her enough and that drove her to this point. And it's really sad because even in the note itself, it said that even in the note itself, it said that it's getting less stressful and crazy now, but I'm still lost. But this still happened, and I feel really sorry for her. Because she was only 16 years old. And for the cover of XXXtentacion's new album, Revenge, he used her suicide note as the cover, and he wrote the song Jocelyn Flores in memory of her. So, her family, when I read the article, it stated that her family some of her family members were upset about the song because it didn't capture who she was exactly. And when I listened to the song, to me, it seemed more like the part when XXXtentacion was rapping in it, it seemed more like it was just about how he was upset that she died. It wasn't really that much that it described Jocelyn Flores that much. And I remember I was looking up the song Jocelyn Flores, some covers of the song, and I found that a bunch of people did do covers of the song with the same music, but with different words and everything. But the ones I found, the words they used and the words they added to the song, it didn't really describe Jocelyn Flores that much, and this was just one crazy ideal well, it's not crazy, but this was just one ideal that I came up with. I've never done anything like this before. I've been thinking about doing a cover of the song Jocelyn Flores, but changing the words to make it about Jocelyn Flores and what she'd been through. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that because that seems really complicated. I never wrote a song before and I have no experience of doing that. I was going to use the same music. I was just going to change the words and use auto-tune. But I just wanted to know what you guys would think of that. And basically I just wanted people to know her story, and I just wanted to do a video about this. Sorry that this video seems out there. I was just a tad bit out of it, and I just had a difficult time explaining this too, because I kind of just been going through some stuff. My mind has just been all over the place. Sorry I've been having a tough time explaining this too. I just really wanted to make this episode in memory of Jocelyn Flores. And I feel really sorry for her because she reminds me so much of my niece, really. And she was only 16 years old. And I just didn't want her to be forgotten at all. I know that she's still here, and I know that her spirit still lives on. I just want her to know that people do care about her, and that she'll never be forgotten at all. And it's just really sad that she went through all this and that this is the way it all ended. But she'll never be forgotten, though. So rest in peace, Jocelyn Flores. So that's it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. What do you think of this whole story, and what do you think of what happened here? And I don't know what else to say about this, because it's just really tragic. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. And don't forget to say a prayer for Jocelyn Flores. And don't forget to wish her peace in the afterlife. So that's it. Peace out, people.